everybody, welcome to the Garage and the Court of Public Opinion. Facebook posting for today, which of course is then, or the dialogue. What do they call it, Pete? Not the dialogue, what is it? The voice track, whatever it is. They take that and they put that, thanks to Andy Martin, they put it as a podcast, and you can pick that up wherever you get your favourite podcasts from. And there must be thousands of podcasts. Everybody seems to be doing a podcast. But I certainly hope that the Jeremy Cordeaux Court of Public Opinion podcast stands out from the rest. We've got to figure out some way, Pete, of making it sort of stand out.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. September 12, another day. The weather is certainly nicer than it's been for the last few days. Interesting, yesterday, Monday, the writs for this referendum were issued, so now that's done. There is no going back. The writs have been published or distributed or whatever they do with them, which means it's a fait accompli. And now it means that it is literally in our hands, our responsibility. And that's good. That's democracy. I was watching kids. Oh, I don't know, they would have been, 15, 16, 17, something like that, on Saturday on the weekend. Really motivated. They were walking the streets. I was parked in Norwood, and they were walking the streets with yes pamphlets, yes T-shirts, all of that. And I thought to myself, how do you motivate kids with this, what I think is rubbish? How do you motivate kids with this when it is so difficult to motivate them in other areas? I asked one young lady on her rounds, dropping these leaflets into letterboxes, even in the no junk mail boxes, I might point out. Maybe they can't read. It's a thought. Anyway, they all went into the boxes, and I said, why do you believe in this yes vote so much that you'd come out on a Saturday morning in your own time like this? And the answer was interesting. She said, I don't believe in it. Somebody just asked me to do it. And I said, why, if you don't believe in it, would you be literally, personally promoting it like this? And she said, I'm not promoting it, I'm just putting leaflets in the letterboxes. God help us. God help us. And then I asked someone else later on in the day, another young lady, they were sort of in 2s and 3s, why are you promoting the yes voice like this, letterbox to letterbox? And she said to me, looked me straight in the eye with a nice big smile, and she said, it's a nice thing to do. I said, it's a nice thing to give your country away? Oh, no, I wouldn't do that, she said. That's not what they told me. I said, who told you? Who told you that? Well, those people who recruited us. They were union people. Oh, okay. They were union people. My friend said it was good. I don't know. Pete, you and I were 18 once, weren't we?
Yeah, hopefully we weren't that stupid, but...
I think it is sad.
Brainwashing.
Oh, people can be manipulated. There's no doubt about that. And young people are idealistic. And long may it be so. But it is the world. This young lady didn't want to give her country away. But she's young and impressionable, and no one told her otherwise. But it's there, clear as day. And tomorrow I will have the... Pete, have we got it right? What's it? It's the...
Well, Caroline said the NIAA. I think it's the NAII.
The NAII.
National Australian Indigenous.
Well, I've got it, and I thank the people. It was more than one person too, I might tell you, last Friday while we were doing jeremycordeaux.com, who sent it to me. But the point was, when I tried to print it out, to bring it down to the garage to read it to you, it just wouldn't, I couldn't blow it up big enough, the print big enough for me to be able to read it. So we're doing that, and I'll have that for you tomorrow. But I think it's confronting and it's damning, and I would really love these young ladies that I met up with in Norwood to tell me what they think of these requests, these modest, humble, reasonable requests. I love the way Noel Pearson and other Aboriginal leaders, architects of the Uluru Statement from the Heart, are quoting John Howard. John Howard. Quoting him, I might say, out of context. Maybe they think we're as silly as the little girls in Norwood. Look, John Howard is implacably, vehemently against a yes vote. Best Prime Minister we've had since Menzies, probably. He is against it. Any attempt to suggest otherwise is literally taking us for fools.
We had him on a previous post last week.
Yes, that's right, you did. You had him on the, attacked him on the end of the show. Absolutely. Is that worthwhile putting up again? I don't know if you've still got it.
Yes, I've still got it, yes.
I think we should put it up again.
At the end of this one.
Because I think that man still has great credibility and gravitas with Australian voters. Noel Pearson talks about this vote as a warm, friendly hand that Aboriginals have extended to white Australia. It's very picturesque. He doesn't believe that that hand will be rejected. Well, his picturesque manifestation is not, I don't think how people will receive this referendum. Another way of looking at it would be that the hand that white Australia has held out to black Australia over many, many, many years. And yes, there have been mistakes and wrongdoings and missteps. But people trying to help, that hand, helping hand, has been disrespected. And indeed, may I say, even bitten. You know, the old line about, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. Whatever we do, it just hasn't seemed to be enough. I don't know. I hope that the no vote will not be a call on Australia, if it gets up, as I think it will. It will not be a call on Australia to do nothing. Far from it. The truth is, we have already done too much, but in the wrong way. We have fueled and enabled a huge, inefficient bureaucracy, which has been a total failure and a terrible, terrible waste of money. It certainly doesn't seem to have been appreciated. And when the dust settles, I want to see us all Australians, as one, have a good look at the domination of this country's political and social life by 3% of the population. The Aboriginal flag is erroneously flown absolutely everywhere. It shouldn't be. On selected, appropriate occasions and places, yes, yes. The welcome to country, the acknowledgements, all of that should be wound back. Absolutely. A broom, a stiff broom, should be put through the ABC. And the educators of this country be told, categorically, 3% of the population should occupy, really, a tiny part of the curriculum. It should not dominate the classroom unless you are plotting some kind of weird revolution, which I don't think we'll let you get away with. And I saw another thing too, involving Noel Pearson. Noel Pearson says he's happy to keep Australia Day on the 26th of January. Noel, I don't really care whether you're happy or not. But I think you see that as some sort of major concession, do you? That you are prepared to keep Australia Day on the 26th of January, which of course has got nothing to do with the 26th of January 1788. This is the day that the Aboriginals think of as Invasion Day or Survival Day or whatever. Nothing to do with it. 26th of January was when we became a nation. 26th of January 1949 was when we became a nation. We had our own passports. Before that, we had to have a British passport. So you're confusing two completely different chapters of history, and I say again, no, I don't care what you're prepared to be happy to put up with. Please don't rearrange our history. Some birthdays before we leave you. September the 12th. I think we have September the 12th. I hope I brought it down. September 12th. You, Pete, didn't come across here and steal it, did you? I always confront myself with two problems. Either I bring too many pieces of paper down or I bring too few. I don't know. No, I got it. September 12th. 2001. Same day as the day after the September 11 business. Ansett Australia's first commercial interstate airline collapses due to increased strain on the international airline industry, leaving 10,000 people unemployed. I well remember that day. I remember that day because I was actually in a Ansett aeroplane coming back to Adelaide from Queensland. And I remember how the stewardesses, the hostesses, the attendants were crying. They were broken up. They really were. It was a very, very terrible moment for them. And it need not have happened. It really need not have happened. It was all about Air New Zealand and it's a very complicated story which I won't go into here. But these things can be avoided. September 12, 1624, the first submarine. What? 1624? The first submarine publicly tested in London on the Thames for King James I. Good God. Who would have thunk it? 2003, Johnny Cash on this day, the American country singer. I walk the line, Ring of Fire, Boy Named Sue. He dies at 71. Very young to die. I think it was emphysema. It wasn't a very good ending for John Cash. I loved him. He's a great singer. 2022, Queen Elizabeth II's coffin makes its ceremonial procession down the Royal Mile, Edinburgh, from the palace to the cathedral, where 20,000 people queue to pay their respects. 1792, court-martial begins for the instigators of the mutiny on the Bounty on board HMS Duke in Portsmouth Harbour, presided over by Vice Admiral Samuel Hood. 1792. Samuel Hood, the name Hood, lived on, having several boats named after him. One of them, of course, being the, I think it was a battleship, which the Bismarck sank. Wasn't it, Pete?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
The Hood. Raymond Burr in 1993, Canadian-American actor, Perry Mason, Ironsides, dies of liver cancer. Good friend of Caroline's father. Andrew Peacock dies at 76, which, you know, being 78, I say quite happily, ain't old. Young man. Dear, oh dear. Casanova, 1755, lover, famous writer, adventurer, sentenced to 5 years imprisonment in Venice without trial for affront to region and common decency. Wonder what he did. Well, I suppose he'd done enough. And 1953, American Senator John F. Kennedy, he was only 36. He married Jacqueline Bouvier, 34, in Newport, Rhode Island. 1953, Anthony Perkins, American actor, Psycho, Friendly Persuasion, singer. He dies of AIDS in 1992. Jennifer Hudson, American Academy and Grammy Award-winning actress. Born in Chicago, Illinois in 1981. 490 BC, the traditional date of the Battle of Marathon, where a small Athenian force defeats the Persian Empire. Goes to show you, can be done. Peter Mark Roget, British, well, inventor of words, I suppose. You know, Roget's thesaurus. He dies at the age of 90 in 1869. Linda Gray, the American actress. Sue Ellen Ewing in Dallas. Born in Santa Monica in 1940. One more. And the world's first patent for synthetic rubber, granted a patent for one Fritz Hoffman. The year was 1909. And if you are celebrating, having a birthday, or it's a day of celebration for one reason or another, hope it's going to be a very happy day. We might leave you with that reprise of John Howard's comments on The Voice. I think we can all benefit from his wisdom. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton and I'll be back tomorrow. We'll see you here in the Court of Public Opinion on Facebook and, of course, on Friday, live streaming from the dining room table. Believe in yourself, and bye for now.
All right, let's speak about The Voice, Mr. Howard. We're on the eve of the referendum for The Voice to Parliament. Anthony Albanese will tomorrow announce the date. What's your message to Australians at the start of this campaign?
Well, the campaign's been going for a while, but my message is if you are intending to vote no, hold hard to that intention. Don't be blinded by an avalanche of publicity. There's a lot of talk that the Yes case has millions of dollars. Well, I think Clive Palmer spent tens of millions of dollars with very little result. Australians are very hard-headed when it comes to politics. We have what I've always recognised as a deep deposit of Celtic scepticism when we look at the blandishments of political figures of whatever stripe. I think the case for voting yes is very weak. And what I find quite extraordinary is that the Prime Minister and his colleagues are sort of almost boasting about the fact that they haven't explained it. I'm against the Voice proposal for three reasons. The first is that I don't like anything that divides us according to race, and however you slice and dice it, it does do that. It does create a body that will be inevitably composed of Indigenous people, and the electorate for that body will be composed of Indigenous Australians. We
don't know how they'll be elected, though.
Big pardon?
We don't know how they'll be chosen, that body.
We don't know how they're going to be elected. Yes. And I've often thought of a speech I heard Bob Hawke make in 1988 when he said, the only thing that defined you as an Australian was your commitment to Australia. No matter where you came from, whether you were Anglo-Celtic, you were Italian, Greek, Christian, Jewish, atheist, whatever, didn't matter. You were defined by your commitment to Australia, and that's how it should be. Yet this proposal defies that, defies the declaration of the person I regard as the most successful Labor, and I stress the adjective, Prime Minister that Australia's had. Now that's the first reason I object to it. The second reason I object to it is that I fear that in the hands of an activist High Court, and bear in mind that only 3 years ago the High Court of Australia decided that an Indigenous person could never be categorised as an alien, even though that person was born in another country, owed allegiance to another country, and in every other respect was an alien. That worries me, and it ought to worry other people who fear for an activist court. And I think the final reason is that whatever the government might say in the next 6 weeks, the truth is that any pronouncement of this body will have a coercive effect on the government of the day. And if this body proposes something that the government doesn't like, every man and his dog, to use an Australianism, will be yelling at the government to do what they're told, because this, after all, is the body which represents Indigenous people. And you've gone through all this trouble to insert it in the Constitution, and now you're going to ignore their advice. How can you possibly do that? And that is how politics can work in this country.
We've seen debate over whether the Uluru Statement from the Heart is 1 page or 18 to 26 pages. Anthony Albanese says the suggestion that it's more than 1 page is a conspiracy. We've seen ABC journalist Lee Sales give advice to the ABC that it would be misinformation for anyone to say it's more than 1 page. My colleague Peter Credlin was censored for her view that it runs to 26 pages. What do you think about all of this?
Well, I think that just illustrates the extraordinary muddle that the government's got itself into. I mean, there are countless instances of the Prime Minister saying that he's in favour of having a voice, a treaty, and truth-telling. Now that's the essence of the Uluru Statement from the Heart. And I don't think there'll be too much talk about 1 page versus 26 pages if the voice gets up. There'll be plenty of people who are saying the next thing is a treaty. Now, I think of all the absurdities coming out of this debate, there is nothing more absurd than the notion of making a treaty with the Indigenous. How can you make a treaty with yourself? Treaties are made between sovereign nations. We have treaties with other countries. We don't have treaties with bits of ourselves. And it only has to be stated to be realised as a complete absurdity.
We're seeing a lot of corporates and sporting codes come out and back the voice to Parliament, some of them running strong campaigns. Qantas has painted yes on the side of some of its planes. What's your view of this?
Well, I think the Qantas example is probably the most egregious of all. My view is that large companies should be neutral because they have a lot of employees, they have a lot of shareholders, they have a lot of customers, and there's no way they can speak for them. And I did make some personal representations for the leaders of two of the sporting bodies that I'm close to. And
oh, did you? Yeah.
I just simply said, why don't you just stay neutral? Yes. And they said, oh, well, I think their governing bodies wanted to take a position, but how on earth can a large sporting... Take a body like the AFL, which is the largest football code by far in Australia. Although not necessarily player-wise, but certainly spectator-wise. They've taken a position. Does that mean that every single club is going to advocate a yes vote? I know for a fact they won't, because I've spoken to people who are involved in the running of the individual clubs who quite resent the fact that they're there's an attempt being made to dragoon them into supporting it. I just think, as a lover of various sports, I just think it'd be a good idea if it's left to the individual. There's no way that a body like the AFL can know what their fans want. There's no way Cricket Australia can know what their fans want, or the NRL or Rugby Australia, and I just think it'd be better if they said nothing.
Do you think there's a risk that it would have the opposite effect, and
I think a lot of
people would feel bullied into vote?
Australians do not like being bullied. They do not like receiving condescending advice. We have this, as I said, this scepticism. What are they up to? What do they want? That's the sort of reaction that you get, and I don't think that's going to help. But help the yes case. I hope it doesn't.
Do you still think it's on track to fail, the referendum?
Well, I can only take the advice of... I can only note what the polls are saying, and the polls are trending. But I've seen a lot of polls, and I think what's happened is it started off with a big lead.
Yes.
And as questions have arisen, that lead's whittled away. But I would, as somebody who wants it to be defeated, and defeated resoundingly in every state, I would encourage no voters to maintain the rage, if I can draw on a phrase that's well known in Australian politics.
We spoke a moment ago about Peter Credlin's Sky News video on Facebook being censored, labelled false and misinformation for her comments about the length of the Uluru Statement from the Heart, which at the very least are contested, at the very least. Are you concerned there's too much censorship of free speech, both in this debate, but also the Albanese government is pushing ahead with proposed misinformation legislation?
Well, I think the idea of any government proposing a misinformation bill is absurd. I just think we should say there are three things that maintain democracy in this country, in my view, and if you've got them in a robust state, you don't need anything else. The first thing is that we have a very robust parliamentary system. Got a lot of faults and it cops a lot of criticism, but it's very effective. And secondly, we have an incorruptible judiciary. Nobody says our judges are crook. I mean, we disagree with some of their decisions, and that's our right. But gee, they've got a reputation for integrity.
Yes.
And the final thing is we have a free press. I mean, we criticise it, and it can be very uncomfortable. I was made very uncomfortable by the free press on many occasions when I was Prime Minister, but that's their job. If you've got those three things, you don't need anything. You don't need a Bill of Rights. You don't need governments saying, well, we're going to define what's disinformation and misinformation.
Now, the Foreign Minister Penny Wong criticised you in private remarks last week at a Labor factional dinner.
In private remarks?
Private remarks that were leaked to the Sydney Morning Herald.
Oh.
Are you aware of this? She referred to your remarks in the early 1990s during the seminal land land rights case, Mabo. She said that, when you held up a map of Australia on the 7:30 report, Wong said that your arguments were exaggerated then, and then she said that fears about Mabo, the apology, and the same-sex marriage haven't been realised, and she's saying the same would be the case for the voice to Parliament. Do you think you've been on the wrong side of history before?
No, I don't think I've been on the wrong side of history. I remember that it was in relation to some land claims that have been made, and I was referring to the fact that there were claims. I don't think there's anything particularly odd about that. And I voted no to same-sex marriage, and I don't apologise for that. Why should I? So it was a very imperfect plebiscite because the Labor Party wouldn't support an orthodox one, wouldn't have altered the result. And as far as the apology is concerned, well, I had a reason for not giving the apology. I don't think you can apologise for the misdeeds of other people. You can regret that they happened, and I did that. But I think apologies should be given by people who are responsible for the things they're apologising for. And I was being asked to apologise for the misdeeds of others, and I wasn't willing to do that. And a lot of people agreed with me, a lot didn't. Does that put me on the wrong side of history? Well, I'll leave it to the historians, and the Australian people didn't think that because they re-elected my government several times after I had declined to give the apology.
Anthony Albanese said in an interview with Neil Mitchell that he hadn't read the full Uluru Statement from the Heart. At the same time, it was one of the commitments he made the night he won the election to implement the Uluru Statement from the Heart in full. Do you think there is a concern that he's not across the detail and that, specifically he hasn't read this?
Well, I think the cavalier approach he took in that interview, and he said, I haven't read that, why would I? Well, I think if you want to change the Constitution and you're the Prime Minister, you should read every damn bit of paper about it that you can possibly absorb in the time available. Mr Albanese is not respecting the Australian people by explaining exactly what is involved, and it's not good enough for him in answer to a question to say, why would I read 26 pages? You've got to learn. You've got to read a lot more than 26 pages to be a successful Prime Minister.
John Howard, an honour to speak with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.